from the VCU Black Awakening Choir. We're glad that you came out this evening for the festivities, and we're honored that we could open up this event for you. We hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you.
thank you for gracing us with your presence, Senator, and thank you for allowing us to have your daughter on our board for the health plan. Senator March has, as we say in the business, have some leave-behinds, but Nadine is, we were talking before, is one just a lovely woman and a very bright spot for us. This evening we've come to honor a group of people whose identities have been lost to an awful history, but whose fate has brought us together in hopeful unity, and we're all very pleased that you've taken time out of your busy lives to join us for this solemn occasion. And thank you to my colleagues here in the front row, over here, who I will introduce in a moment, and to those from the university and the community who honor the memory of these individuals by their service on the East Marshall Street Well Planning Committee. Thank you so much for your service and for your dedication to this occasion. It was near this site on East Marshall Street that human remains were discarded into a well over a period of years. We know that now, approximately between 1840 and 1860. Analysis of the bones tells us that many were of African descent. History tells us that they were likely enslaved in and around Richmond in central Virginia. They remained here for nearly 150 years before construction uncovered the well and the process of removal began. I know that because my office, when I first came back to VCU in 1986, was in St. Philip's Hospital, at that time called East Hospital. So when they decided to construct a new health sciences building, obviously I had to move, and that's when all of this came to light. So I was in the office building right above the site where the well was uncovered. Sadly, proper procedures to show respect to these human beings and to gain a better understanding of their final resting place were not followed. And so tonight, with compassion and contrition, our community has come together. To my colleague, who will lead us through the rest of this evening's ceremony and discussion. First is the Reverend Dr. Eli Burke, the Director of Health, Wellness, and Social Justice for the Baptist General Convention of Virginia, who serves as Vice Chair of the East Marshall Street Well Planning Committee. Reverend Burke, would you please stand? Joanna Wilson Green, from the Virginia Department of Historical Resources. Ms. Green, would you please stand? Dr. Quincy Birdsong, the Associate Vice President for Health Sciences at VCU. Dr. Birdsong, would you stand to be recognized? Dr. Michael Rao, President of Virginia Commonwealth University and the VCU Health System. Dr. Rao, would you please? And Janine Bebb, from the Alegba Folklore Society. Would you please stand? Now, we want to thank the VCU Black Awakening Choir for their performance a cappella of Amazing Grace that began our program. Wasn't that wonderful? Would you please give them a wonderful beginning for the evening. We also want to acknowledge Ashby Anderson, whose music has been played in the exhibition area in the Contos Medical Education Building across the courtyard. Would you please give her a warm round of applause. We hope you've had the opportunity to take advantage of the exhibition in the Contos Building that offers more information about the East Marshall Street Well and the steps we're taking to memorialize it. If you have not been able to do that yet, we invite you to join us back at the Contos Building afterwards and after the pouring of libations. Thank you all for being a part of this important and collaborative ceremony. Now please join me in welcoming the Vice Chairman of the committee that will lead this process, the Reverend Dr. Eli Burke.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Richmond. And thank all of you for being here this evening. It is an honor to be with you on this very significant occasion. We have come to honor the memory of people whose names we don't know, but they are not strangers to us. They are us. We do know that they had families all those years ago. We do know that someone cared for them. We don't know if their descendants are now our neighbors. So we stand in as their children. We will be their impassioned advocates and their substitutionary voice. We are honored to do so. We have also come because we care for our community and all of its people. Our city has suffered the scars of history, but time and time again, it has risen to become a great symbol of hope and reconciliation. Tonight, let us acknowledge this tragedy from our past and move forward to build a better future, one in which every person in our community is heard, respected, valued, and let us listen to each other's voices. Let us build a community that is not divided by race, social status, ethnicity, or ideas, but one that is unified in the belief that all of us can make a difference when we all work together for the betterment of the entire community and for all of humanity. It is an honor to co-chair the planning group that has worked to honor the men, women, and children whose remains were left and forgotten there. We will serve their memory with honor, respect, and dignity. It is my pleasure now to introduce you to my fellow members of the East Marshall Street Well Planning Committee. Members, please stand when I call your name. Our chair is the Honorable Ellen Robertson, who represents the City of Richmond's 6th District and serves as Vice President of our City Council. Councilwoman Robertson could not be here tonight. Ms. Anna Edwards, Chairman of the Sacred Ground Historical Reclamation Project of the Defenders Freedom, Justice, and Equality. Dr. John Kneebone, Associate Professor and Chairman of the Department of History at VCU. Dr. Monica Markowitz, Director of Research, Integrity, and Ethics in the Office of Research at VCU. Delegate Dolores McQuinn, representing the Virginia Slave Trail Commission. Mr. Larry Miller, the retired project management analyst for the city's Department of Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities. Dr. Wanda Mitchell, VCU's Vice President for Inclusive Excellence. Dr. Mark Ollinger, Director of Planning and Development Review for the City of Richmond. Dr. Karen Rader, Associate Professor of History at VCU. Dr. John Snyder, University Librarian at the James Branch Cabell Library at VCU. Dr. Sean Utsi, Professor of Psychology at VCU. Mr. Russ Uzzle, University Planner at VCU. And Mrs. Cricket White, representing Hope in the Cities. And Ms. Joanna Wilson Green, an archaeologist from the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. We also have excellent support from VCU staff members, Dr. Kevin Allison, Dr. Quincy Birdsong, Mr. Stephen Davenport, and Mr. Mike Porter. We are also pleased to be working with two nationally renowned consultants, Dr. Michael Blakey, the National Endowment for the Humanities Professor at the College of William and Mary, and Mr. Don Edwards from Justice and Sustainability Associates. Thank all of you. Thank you so very much for this very important work that you have chosen to be a part of. It will not be in vain. And now, please welcome Ms. Joanna Wilson Green, who will offer comments on behalf of the Virginia Department of Historic Resources.
Thank you, Reverend Burke. Good evening, everyone. The Virginia Department of Historic Resources supports the Commonwealth in its responsibility and authority to foster, encourage, and support the stewardship of Virginia's significant historic, architectural, archaeological, and cultural resources. This is a critical role within the Commonwealth, considering our rich history and the range, breadth, significance, and depth of our state's historic legacy, its resources, and its assets. Virginia's history is central in understanding the American settlement, the founding of our democracy and our nation's struggle for independence, the challenge of slavery and the slave trade, and the tensions that brought our nation to civil war. Through the assets of our Commonwealth, we more deeply understand how Virginians lived their lives, the communities that they built, how our country was founded and developed, and the choices that our leaders have made. In the challenging circumstances reflected in the discovery of the East Marshall Street well, what we learn tells a difficult but very important story. As we move forward with the East Marshall Street well project, the Department of Historic Resources will work with the university and its community partners to support and to ensure that a process is put in place to demonstrate the appropriate care for these remains and to chart an appropriate course for their future. And now I ask that you please welcome Dr. Quincy Birdsong from VCU, who will share with you some of the history, goals, and the next steps in this important process. Dr. Birdsong.
Sure. Thank you, Joanna. And thank all of you for being here and showing your support for this very important endeavor. Your support for this process is going to be critical to its forward movement. So already tonight you've heard a little bit about what happened on this site around 150 years ago. Human remains, likely from enslaved Africans, were deposited into a well and sealed off until the well was discovered during a construction project many years later. Analysis suggests that these men, women, and children who had died and whose bodies were then likely used for anatomical and surgical training by student physicians, their bodies were then buried in the well and covered. This well was rediscovered in April of 1994 during construction of the Hermes A. Contos Medical Sciences building right beside us. Construction paused while archaeological crews assisted in recovering bones and other artifacts from the site. Standard practice would have dictated that a layer of soil excavated by hand and any artifacts carefully bagged and labeled. Human remains would be treated with dignity and reverence. Sadly, in this instance, that process was not followed. The archaeologists had excavated only about 1 foot of soil when construction workers dug up the rest of the well using heavy machinery. The archaeologists were then given 1 weekend to recover artifacts from the dirt piled outside the construction zone. The human remains they recovered were analyzed by the Smithsonian Institute's National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., where they remain today. That is the history. How we proceed together, beginning tonight, will determine the legacy of these individuals. President Rao organized the committee you just met in September 2013 and asked it to lead an effort around additional examination and memorialization. Already the committee has worked with representatives from historic Jamestown Rediscovery and from VCU Special Collections and Archives and continues to work with the Smithsonian Institute. In the coming months, the committee will also host a series of 5 forums to gather community input and recommendations. These discussions will assist us in identifying a group of community members who will stand as the decedent community and speak on behalf of the individuals whose remains were discovered, and to make recommendations about the need for additional study, memorialization, and even reburial. This process of gaining your perspective begins tonight. When you enter the exhibition inside the Contos building following tonight's ceremony, you will see areas where you can share your thoughts, concerns, questions, and give your recommendations, either by comment card, via video or audio recording. These comments will be made available to those who will serve as the decedent community. It is our mission that these individuals will be remembered with the dignity and respect that likely eluded them in life. We also hope that this process will serve to inspire generations of students to dedicate themselves to serving others, particularly those from less represented and often voiceless communities, with a commitment to human health, including those who train in these very buildings. That's why I'm especially proud to join Dr. Rao, our president, in announcing the VCU will begin a memorial scholarship in honor of those individuals whose remains were discovered. The scholarship will be for students who commit to serving the human health needs of underserved communities. You can give a round of applause. The life-changing and life-saving work of these students will forever be the legacy of those individuals lost in the well a century and a half ago. Further steps to memorialize these individuals will be announced in the coming months, following the community forums and continuing discussion and dialogue. I really appreciate the work of this committee and all of our partners in the community that have participated and given of their time and their energy to ensure that we always remember and are inspired by these individuals, and that we are also empowered by their memory to make this world and this community a better place. Chief among all these partners is our president, Dr. Rao, who has not been a casual participant in this effort. He's been right there on the front line giving of his thoughts, of his energy, and of his resources, and we are extremely grateful for all he's doing to support this effort. President Rao.
Good evening. Thank you, Quincy. Earlier today, I had an opportunity, as I often do, to walk around campus on my way back from a meeting. And it's one of my favorite things to do. And one of the reasons that it is one of my favorite things to do is because I'm reminded of how much the university really looks like the world that we live in and how much it's changing. It's a world that's going to be a lot better because of these bright, passionate, and diverse minds. And these are all people who will lead our world. It's a real hallmark of Virginia Commonwealth University. Our commitment as a university to diversity today is really core. And it keeps me mindful of all the ways in which people are truly different, and all of the ways in which our differences enable us to really learn from each other. I've never seen students who care more deeply about each other, or faculty and staff who are so collegial, welcoming, and committed to ensure that our university community reflects our true commitment to diversity, our genuine commitment to diversity. We eagerly embrace each other and sincerely value the uniqueness of every individual as essential to our living and learning environment. With our core values, we've committed that we will always be a place where anyone from any background is encouraged anytime to take the opportunity to succeed and achieve whatever future they can imagine as equal human beings. I'm proud of that commitment and of the people who embody it. I'm pleased that we're the most diverse university in the Commonwealth, and that we have admitted our most diverse freshman class ever, and that we have been nationally recognized for our commitment. Half of our students are first in their families to attend college. Most do not come from wealth, and a university education is an incredibly transformative experience for most of these young people. Years ago, attending a vibrant, nationally premier research university might not have been a possibility for many of these students because they didn't have the kind of access that VCU is committed to providing. And thankfully, in general, the world is changing. More now than ever, we want to see the potential of every person made real and used to help elevate the entire human experience. We've made considerable progress, but I'm always the first to say we have a lot of work ahead of us. We also remember the words of William Faulkner, who wrote that, and I'll quote him: "The past is not even past. Our history, including what happened here, will always be an inescapable part of who we are, but it must not limit what we can become." When I consider the long history of this institution, I am, of course, very proud of so many things, including the scientific and medical advances that have been made on this campus that have saved the lives of countless people from all backgrounds. However, we are not proud of the circumstances surrounding these human remains. The university acknowledges its responsibility for the treatment of these human remains, and we are affording them the respect and dignity that they so well deserve. We cannot change the past. We can do together what is needed to move forward by demonstrating these shared commitments. Because what defines us as a university, as individuals, and as a community is how we are transformed by our past, not how we're constrained by it. I commit to you today that the legacy of these human beings will not be that they were buried in a well and forgotten. It will be that they inspired us to move forward together. We owe it to them, and we owe it to each other to accelerate the pace of our progress. Let us all remember that human beings are indeed very powerful and important and deserve to be treated with dignity in life and in death. So let's work together toward a new world in which every person from every place has every chance to flourish, where how you lead matters more than how you look, and where your promise matters much more than your past. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me in this commitment to our fellow human beings. I thank you for honoring their legacies and for helping to shape our future. At this time, I ask Janine Bell from Alegba Folklore Society if she will kindly lead us into the courtyard for the pouring of libations.
To return home. Without them, the song says, we would not be here. Libation is an African ritual that pays homage to our ancestors. Bring their walk into our walk. Bring their commitment into our heads. Reflect light with the love that is
1930s, former enslaved Africans spoke about their lives in interviews as excerpted here. All of the cloth during slavery time was made on the loom. My master had 3 slaves who worked in the loom house. After the cloth was made, master sent it over town to a white woman who made it in clothes. We had to knit all our stockings and gloves. We plant blades of wheat to make bonnets for the women's. We had to wear wooden shoes. There weren't no stoves, so we growed everything we ate, and we make everything we wear. Master give us huts to live in. The beds was made of long boards that was nailed to the wall. The mattress was stuffed with straw and pine tags. The only light we had was from the fireplace. We didn't use no matches. Instead, we struck a rock on a piece of steel. We let the sparks fall on some cotton. Work begun at sunrise and last till sundown. When I was 8 years old, I started working in the field. Took 2 paddles to keep the crows from eating the crops. We had a half day on Sunday, but you weren't allowed to visit. Sometimes us men, slaves, would put logs in the beds and they cover them up. Then they go out. Master would see the logs and think we was in the bed. And on Sundays, they would let us go to church up at Sassafras Stage near Bethel. Was the first church for us in these parts. Wasn't no white church. We built it. And we had our own preacher. Of course, they wouldn't let you have no services unless a white man was present. Most times the white preacher would preach. Then he would sit there and listen while the colored preacher preached. That was the law at the time. Couldn't no Negro preacher preach less than a white man was present, and they paid the white man with attending the colored services. We had to sit there and listen to that white man's sermon. But we didn't want to, because we knowed it by heart. Always took his text from Ephesians, the white preacher did. The part what said, obey your master, be good servant. Can I tell you how many times I done heard that text preached on? They always tell the slave if he be good and work hard for his master, then he would go to heaven. Now, he was going to live a life of ease. They ain't never tell him he's going to be free in heaven. You see, they didn't want the slave to start thinking about freedom. He's in heaven. Uncle Silas was near about 100, I reckon. Too feeble to do no work, but always got strength enough to hobble to church when the slave service gonna be. Old preacher named Reverend Johnson, forget the rest of his name. He was preaching, and the slaves were sitting there sleeping and fanning themselves with oak branches. And Uncle Silas got up in the front row of the slave pew and halted Reverend Johnson. If God's gonna free us slaves when we get to heaven, the preacher stopped and looked at Uncle Silas like you want to kill him, because Because ain't nobody supposed to say nothing except amen when he preaches. Waited a minute he did, looking hard at Uncle Silas standing there, but didn't give no answer. Is God gonna free us slaves in heaven? Old preacher pulled out his handkerchief, wiped the sweat from his face. Jesus says, come unto me, ye who are free from sin, and I will give you salvation. Gonna give us freedom along with salvation. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. And he that is without sin will have life everlasting. Preach the preacher. Then he went on preaching fast like, without paying no attention, Uncle Silas standing there. Uncle Silas wouldn't sit down. Stood there the rest of the service he did. And that was the last time he come to church. Uncle Silas died for another preaching time come around. Reckon he found out whether or not he gonna be free. Sooner than he calculated to.
Our humility is a source of our power. If you can and choose, bring your body to the ground as a statement of your humility. Our humility is a source of our power. If you can and choose, lower your back in oneness with the earth. Our humility is a source of our power. If you can and choose, lower your head. The Matunete. Naun Ankh, water of life. Naun Seneb, water of strength. Naun Uja, water of health. We pay homage to our ancestors, those who are fortunate to be buried in the soils of Africa, the cradle of civilization. We pay homage to those who were the mothers and the fathers, who were the architects, the scientists, the educators, the agriculturalists, the mathematicians, the community builders, the spiritual leaders, the warriors. We pay homage to Imhotep of Kemet, this African place of spiritual and intellectual advancement. Imhotep, whose name means I come in peace, the earliest known physician whose work gave us foundational anatomical observations and prescriptions for cure. To those who were the natural caretakers of the earth's most precious minerals. To those family groups and lines who lived interdependently, thereby creating and maintaining order. If you agree, we say Dua Nater. We pay homage to those who withstood the daily, life-changing sacrifices made under European colonization and the transatlantic trade of enslaved Africans. Dua Nater. We pay homage to those who were lost in the Middle Passage. To those who could not endure the months at sea, objectified as cargo in horrifically inhumane conditions that disallowed cleanliness, warmth, nourishment, or love. We honor the water that is your eternal home. Dua Nater. We pay homage to those whose bones rest in the earth, in the Americas. We thank those who lived in the shackles of bondage and its legacy. We thank the thousands of Africans among the first in America who came through Richmond's notorious markets, bringing both the knowledge and strength of the motherland and despair. Dua Nater. We honor those who in death are without rest as skeletal specimens for not the benefit of themselves or their community, who completed their cycle of life in a dry well. We honor our African foreparents, some of whom were sold and bought at 19th and Main Streets in the Union Hotel, later occupied for medical education by Hampton City College. We honor our foreparents, whose eternal rest was curtailed as the Medical College of Virginia organized itself, perhaps knowingly, adjacent to what has been reclaimed as Richmond's African burial ground. Dua Nater. We remember our African family in Richmond who fell victim to the callous objectification of medical research without ethics, for whom this treatment was heinous, or for whom it became a persistent, confused, paternalistic normalcy. We remember our family in other locales, then and more recently, for whom this treatment was diminishing and without regard for the God in them and thus their humanity. We honor those who now finally elevate as beings of light, and who will tomorrow, centuries later, have their dignity restored. Dua Nater. We honor our family, whose sole reliance is on its specific community to give them voice, honor, and rest. Dua Nater. We are because you were. It is upon your broad shoulders that we stand, for you have trod the path to make our way clearer. We ask for your many blessings. Duanatea, Aku were everlasting life to our great golden souls. Duanatea, praises to the divine. Reverend Dr. Duncan.
My name is Angela Duncan, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Student Affairs and Community Engagement in the VCU School of Allied Health Professions, but I am also the manager and chaplain for the Department of Patient Counseling and Pastoral Care. In the words of Dr. Maya Angelou, history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, and if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you now take a moment for silent contemplation, prayer, reflection, or meditation as a gesture of respect for those we've come to honor today, once known but unknown to us. And although the circumstances of their lives and death were tragic, their lives and their death have not been in vain, and that we remember them today. And their contributions to science and medicine have given benefit to many. Let us now, and this is our time, to ponder our individual and collective commitment in the mission to remember these individuals with dignity and respect. Bless us now as we go forth from this place. Thank you for the leadership of those whose voices we have heard today. May we continue to have authentic engagement and honest conversations with one another. Give us the courage to make right decisions as we move forward. Forgive us when we fall short. Encourage us when the work gets weary, and provide the hope we need to continue on. Let us share the stories of our ancestors as we work to build a community where all of our voices may be heard. And let us provide opportunities for justice, reconciliation, and healing. Amen.
Amen.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Allison, Senior Assistant to the President, and I want to thank you all for joining us for tonight's event. I appreciate your presence. I appreciate the dignity and respect that you have shown to those who we've come to honor. We do have the opportunity to continue our conversations in the Contos Building to examine the displays that help us place in context this episode in our history. Again, thank you for joining us, and please join us in the Contos Building.